Hello, coaches. I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what we did in third grade football this year. I've drawn on the board our basic flexbone formation. As many of you know, I teach option football, and this is my preferred formation. We have a quarterback, two A backs, as they're called, or slot backs, as some people call them, a B back, traditionally called a fullback, and two split ends. Fairly balanced formation. The thing about running flexbone is that a lot of times to get a play started, an option play or a sweep or anything that's going to head outside where you want to bring one of the running backs to the other side of the formation, you've usually got to start with something like this. Basically some motion pre-snap to get the player into position where he can continue to cross the field and be outside for a pitch or to be an extra blocker or whatever the situation is they're trying to run that way, or even to run a counter to start motion one way and then come back the other way. And you see that all the time if you watch Navy or Georgia Tech or any of the other flexbone option teams running. You'll see this pre-snap, what some folks call orbit motion, where the back orbits around the backfield. The difficulty for me this year and really last year was that I was dealing with very young kids. I had third graders this year, and last year they were second graders. And our solution last year as second graders, and in a previous go-round that I did in coaching with third graders, the solution was to actually run out of a traditional wishbone formation. And when we run a wishbone, you see we're going to get much the same kind of look where we've got a quarterback and a fullback and two running backs. What we oftentimes have to do in wishbone, though, because those slot backs aren't there to kind of widen the defense, we'll have to bring tight ends in. And so a lot of times what you'll end up with is a double tight wishbone formation. And that's kind of a good beginning option type formation. It has some disadvantages, though. The disadvantage is that you don't get this blocker outside unless you expressly split him out. And the reason it's nice to have him outside is that it creates a bigger gap here between the cornerback and, say, another overhang defender. So a little bit more space for an option play to be run successfully. The other thing it allows you to do is gives this man a really great blocking angle if he wants to crack back. And so traditionally, people love to run option to the split end side of the field. So a lot of times in wishbone you might see a double split. The downside then, though, is that this near overhang player has a really pretty good straight shot at an angle into the backfield and can get pretty deep pretty fast because he's tight to the tackle. If you can put a slot back out there or an A back, now all of a sudden that overhang player getting through that gap is an entirely different situation than coming outside. And so there's just more time and space out here. So this is really a better formation, all things being equal. You might even say that this is a better formation. If you could run I with a wing back, now you've already got that slot back in the formation that you want him, and the I back and the place that you want him, and you can run an awful lot of stuff out here. But if you're going to run to the strength of the formation, it's pretty clear pre-snap which side is the strength of the formation. So you're kind of left with either we're going to run in wishbone and tighten things up, or we're going to try to make sure that our young little kids, our second graders, our third graders, or whatever, are capable of doing motion. I wondered this year if I could take a different approach, and this is actually what I hit on. I've gone ahead and put both guys a little bit further back and behind the tackles, and I called this T formation. I think that's kind of what it looks like an old-fashioned T formation, but my guys are a little bit wider. I lined them up behind the tackles. I was basically getting those first two steps of motion already done. And what I found was that I could run option to either side with this formation, and that I could also use the near or play side back as a blocker in the alley if I needed to, or as a lead blocker on our fullback ISO dives and that sort of thing. So this actually was the compromise formation that I used this year as opposed to wishbone. A lot of times I ran it with a tight end and one split end, and I'd flip-flop those. Sometimes I ran it double tight. Sometimes I ran it in what we called Navy, where both guys were just 2 or 3 yards split out like that. Or if I was running what I called T right, then my X was split out this way, and my Y was a tight end on the right. T left, it was opposite. The Y would line up on the left tight, and the X would be split out on the right. So T open was this formation. T Navy would be this formation, or it would even be T, I also call it extra. So if I called extra, then the X lined up tight, so I could run extra open, and that caused the Y to open up and the X to be tight. So I could kind of interchange these guys and move them around and get different looks that I wanted. But the main thing that I wanted to point out to you guys here was that I actually was running from not a flex bone and not a wishbone, but something kind of in between that I called T formation this year. Okay, so here are a few plays that we ran. I really want to introduce you to Midline, which was probably our #1 play. I'm just going to roll through the tape here. This particular team that we were playing happened to line up in a 5-2 against us. The only time we saw it all year, where they had 2 deep safeties. I've circled the dive key there, and you'll see that he's going to be lined up in the A gap, so we're actually going to block him on down. He gets blocked. Our fullback goes out and gets the linebacker. This is our lead back that I have circled here. His job is to go down and get #2, which he kicks him outside, and then the safety comes over and he kicks him outside, and then a third guy goes inside. He actually touches no one and gets 3 guys blocked, which is pretty amazing. But our quarterback just kind of weaves his way through there. The key to it all really was just that we were able to take that guy that was lined up in the A gap and sort of use him as a key as to how we were going to run. Here's another example of a pull, and you'll see this time that there is our dive read, and he once again is lined up inside the guard, and you'll see the guard step out to block him down. The next guy over is the defensive tackle, so they're playing in what amounts to sort of an even front here, and that particular tackle steps inside also, so they attack the A gap with the first down lineman and the B gap with the second down lineman. So both guys are stepping inside. So we say, okay, that's fine. And our quarterback just bounces it, and it works out pretty well. Once again, lead back coming around. We got really good blocking by our split end and our both of our A backs coming around in front of the quarterback here. He ends up with about a 15-yard gain here. And so here we go. Finally, we get to the last game of the year, and we finally had a team that played us with no one really in the A gaps. All year long, people had been putting always one and usually 2 guys in the A gaps. And here these guys are finally spread out. And if you count their guys, here you're going to see this is pretty much a cover 0. They've rolled up both safeties to within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and both of them are in the alleys. And so the middle is kind of open, and we're going to take advantage of that here. So there's your dive key right there, and he lines up in the B gap. And we'll see how we handle him. Same play, midline lead, left. And I've gone ahead and put an arrow on him, and you can see he goes right past. Nobody touches him, because the guy that might have blocked him, the guard, right here, to the right there, his attention is on the linebacker. There's where he's going. Now, if our quarterback misreads that and keeps the ball, this guy's going to crush him. And what's going to happen, you can't even see the fullback right now. He's obscured by the quarterback, but we're going to do this mesh, and we're going to give this ball, and, boom, there he goes. And you can see now our guard is out here getting a tremendous block. Everybody, the safety, the corner, all those people that were rolled up are either getting blocked or they've come upfield. That's our fullback right there, and he's gone. And, you'll see this a lot, whether you're watching Navy or Georgia Tech or any of those flexbones teams in college. When that fullback just suddenly blasts up the middle and nobody touches him, that's a pretty good clue that they ran midline. So now I'll kind of show you how it's all drawn. Okay, so I've drawn in here midline left lead, and I'll try to describe to you what I've drawn. I've started teaching some zone blocking principles. Found that third graders understand zone left, zone right a little bit easier than you go get the defensive tackle, because a lot of times they don't know who the defensive tackle is. They just see somebody close to them, so they think, oh, that must be the defensive tackle. But if I tell them, hey, you've got zone left, they know left from right, I can say, okay, that means you're going to step to the left, and you've got the gap to your left first, you've got the man in front of you second, you have anybody that's above you, either just to your left or straight above you, that's your third. If you don't have any of those things, then you can go to the zone side and double team and combo. So I give both of these backside players zone left or zone in toward the midline responsibility. The center has zone away. So in this case, he has zone right, or what we call Zorro. And you can see that he doesn't have a man in his gap here. He doesn't have a man straight above him. He doesn't really have anybody that's obvious that he would come out to block above him. So he's free to drive, block, and then combo off here. And that will create a nice little alley for our fullback on the midline play. This is the guy that we're trying to read on midline. We always are reading the first down lineman to the play side of the center. So in this case, the way that this is drawn, I've drawn here kind of a roughly a 4-4. In our league, you're allowed to have no more than 5 defensive linemen within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. So what a lot of teams will do is they'll have 3 on one side and 2 on another if they're kind of an even front team. You know, this guy effectively becomes an outside blitzer or whatever. They also don't allow blitzing in our league. That never gets called, so consequently there is some blitzing, but then they don't allow nose guard. And they're all sort of limitations designed to make it a little bit easier to teach offense and to actually execute some plays. Next year, all those prohibitions are gone, so when these kids are 4th graders, they'll be dealing with nose guards and blitzes and gap 8 defenses and all kinds of things. So, but for now, we're limited to 5 men on the line of scrimmage. So this is how we would draw it up against an even front, however they position themselves. As many of you know, I number our guys from outside in, so I consider this the number 1 man. The next guy over that's on or near the line of scrimmage, so he could be at this level or this level, he's going to be number 2. The next guy over that is off the line is number 3. And the next guy that is on the line is number 4. So I'm always kind of looking for that. The kids roughly understand 1, and they roughly understand 2. Occasionally they have trouble finding 3, and we hardly ever get to 4 at the 3rd grade level. But I try to be consistent about the way we teach it and draw it to the kids. So again, I'm asking this left tackle to do a Zorro block or zone right block. He's got a man right in front of him. He can take that guy either way he wants to go. It doesn't matter to me. As long as we get hat on hat there, that's totally fine. So I have done my slot backs a couple of different ways. Both of these guys are going to end up being lead backs in case the quarterback pulls. Both of these guys are going to be lead backs. I'm going to need one of them to kick out the number 2 man and one of them to lead up through the hole. And I have done it both ways, where this guy leads and this guy kicks, or in this case, the way I have it drawn, this guy kicking and this guy leading. I will say that when you're very, very young, this guy being able to see this guy right from the very beginning helps get some hat on hat with this guy. If you're bringing this guy all the way across and expecting him to find that guy and hit him, and he could have done any number of things, a lot of times he ends up not blocking anybody. So you're kind of almost better off having this guy do the kick and this guy do the lead, although, you know, in a perfect world, I think you'd do it the other way, because this guy's going to be much more effective going after a linebacker if he can run straight downhill at him. And really, if this guy knows what he's doing and takes a really strong, sharp angle, it's almost like a trap block. He's going to be going full blast as that guy comes across, and he should be able to kick him out pretty well. But as a practical matter with young kids, that hasn't necessarily always worked. So then on to the guts of midline lead. Our fullback's aiming point is the side that we're running to of the center. So he's just barely on his left leg in this case. Our quarterback actually takes a pivot step out of the way, and he's reading this guy. If this guy is down in the hole to start, or he crosses the face of the guard, then he pulls. If he goes outside at this level, we just give. We're not asking him to see if he wraps and then tries to tackle the fullback or anything like this. We have a 2-foot split here, and so we think it works pretty well. If this guy goes outside, we're going to give, and we're going to have that guard out in front leading, and that's going to be a pretty good play. So that's his read. And then if he does pull, then he's basically just looking for a hole. We don't get real specific about it. I'd like for him to stay close to the line. He doesn't always. If this guy ends up blowing our tackle up and it's back, and he bellies some, that's kind of what happened in that play that I showed you the video of. He ended up going pretty far back and then curling outside. This kind of crashed in, and so he actually ended up outside of all of these guys, so it worked out pretty well. But that's how midline lead is drawn.